A new airliner from Asia, technically modest, causing undisguised skepticism among many, and at the same time, increasingly conquering the market. Hello aviators, Sky here, and today we will meet a new player, find out why and how it was created, go through its thorny path, and try to figure out what role it plays in China's plan to conquer the civil aviation market. I present to you the ARJ21 Xiangfeng. The market for regional jet aviation at the end of the 20th century was experiencing a renaissance. Airliners from different manufacturers were actively competing for the skies, and everyone was waiting for the next round of the big race with the advent of new aircraft. E-Jet, MRJ, SSJ, C-Series, for every taste. The Chinese aviation industry at that time was not chasing the others. Not to say that they never tried, but these attempts were not particularly successful back then. There was not enough technology and capabilities. It was their expansion that the industry was engaged in for quite a long time, largely handing over the market to foreign companies. But by the end of the 20th century, aircraft manufacturers decided that they had reached a level where they could make their own competitive airliners, and it was time to start. They did not rush into adventures, deciding to go from simple to complex. First came the Xi'an MA60 and its modifications, small turboprop airliners similar to the ATR and Dash 8. The planes were not reaching for the stars, but were not bad, paving the way for the next step, a step in the race of regional jets. In 2002, the Advanced Regional Jet, or ARJ21 project was initiated. The implementation was carried out by AVIC 1. From the very beginning, it was decided to make the aircraft without being based on existing machines. Yes, even the MA60 was, by and large, a modification of the military transport Y-7, which in turn was a local version of the Soviet An-24. The new aircraft had to be a full-fledged civilian airliner, without these military tails, which simplify creation but often impair performance and complicate promotion on the market. The requirements for the aircraft were not too strict: a capacity of 70 to 80 seats, a range of about 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers, competitive performance but without running after innovations, a minimum of risks. Among the special conditions, one can note the ability to operate effectively throughout China with its sometimes difficult conditions, so the aircraft had to be able to operate at not very developed airfields, as well as in hot and high conditions. The commercial plan assumed a balance of good performance and moderate cost. The target clientele were the airlines in developing countries, which have limited resources and cannot afford the latest aircraft, preferring the secondary market. They are the ones the ARJ21 had to fight for. It was decided to build broad international cooperation from the very beginning. The aircraft had to have wide export prospects and had to be certified by international organizations. All of it, including all systems, and this is much easier to do using what is already on the market. And even without this, AVIC understood perfectly well that they would not be able to create a number of complex systems with the necessary performance and in an adequate time frame on their own. In addition, cooperation made it possible to gain valuable experience and technology. The large Chinese market attracted foreigners, and many companies joined the project, including for example Rockwell Collins, which worked on avionics, General Electric, which supplied engines, and the Ukrainian Antonov, which actually created the wing for the aircraft. Inside China, the project also had high priority, and many organizations took part in it. The main production sites were factories in Shanghai, Jiang, Chengdu, and Shenyang. It was decided to carry out the final assembly at a plant near Decheng Airport in Shanghai, a very famous place for the Chinese aircraft industry. The deadlines were ambitious. The first flight was supposed to be carried out already in 2005, with the start of deliveries in 2007. To be honest, the deadlines initially seemed unrealistic. Yes, the aircraft is relatively simple, but from the first blueprint to the first delivery in 5 years is difficult. In fact, the testing and certification program did not begin until late 2008, when the prototype made its maiden flight. This work involved several aircraft and was active, with a full range of tests and flights in different regions of China and beyond. By this time, its official name was chosen by voting: Xiangfeng, Soaring Phoenix. The tests were difficult and revealed many problems: features of onboard equipment, difficulties with mechanics, structural fatigue, wing durability. All this, coupled with insufficient experience, turned what everyone thought was a quick certification stage into a long and painful journey. Faced with so many difficulties and delays, many other companies would likely have simply cancelled the project, but the Chinese showed persistence. The ARJ21 was part of the large aviation development program, and its closure would have called into question much more than one aircraft. The image of the entire Chinese aviation industry was at stake. It had to prove its worth. Besides, the political issue has not gone away. The plane was not created by some private company working for its own pleasure, and the big bosses would not have appreciated the cancellation of the program. On the contrary, in parallel with the development of the program, a serious reform of the industry was carried out, and after the reorganization, the ARJ21 came under control of the newly formed COMAC, which became the main creator of Chinese civilian airliners. The C919 is also their brainchild. Finally, in 2014, the Civilian Aviation Administration of China, CAAC, issued a type certificate. The Phoenix was officially born. In 2016, the aircraft received a certificate from the Ministry of Transport of the Republic of Congo, which is cool, although it is, of course, only valid there. The bigger guys, like the FAA and EASA, have not yet certified the plane, although the Chinese are actively working on it. So, let's take a closer look at the Soaring Phoenix. The ARJ21-700, length 33.5 meters, wingspan 27.3 meters, height 8.44 meters. The layout is familiar to regionals: a low-swept wing, a T-shaped tail, and a pair of engines located in the rear of the fuselage. The landing gear is tricycle and quite strong. It is similar to machines such as the Bombardier CRJ700, Fokker 70, and a few others. A bit of history. After the warming of relations between China and the United States in the 1970s, American aircraft manufacturers rushed to conquer a new market. And in 1985, McDonnell Douglas, together with Shanghai Aircraft, established licensed production of their MD-80 and MD-90 aircraft in China. There was no epic success story, only a few dozen planes were produced, but the Chinese gained valuable experience working with such aircraft. And now, after years of oblivion, the ARJ21 appears before us, which is quite reminiscent of the same Douglases, which led many to the obvious idea that the Phoenix is their modernized copy. On the one hand, we can agree with this. At least the fuselage here in many components is practically the same, and a number of solutions are clearly taken from the same plane. On the other hand, we are talking mainly about design solutions. Most of the elements and all systems are new. This is pragmatic. There is little experience in creating such aircraft, and it would be stupid to throw away what they had and do everything from scratch just so that no one looks suspicious. The side effect, perhaps, is that the plane looks slightly outdated, in some places giving off the trends of the 1980s. But let's return to the new parts of the aircraft. The wing has a 25-degree sweep, a supercritical profile, and is equipped with small winglets. The high-lift devices are well developed. Slats extended along almost the entire length, large slotted flaps, spoilers, and ailerons. The wing has an area of 79.9 square meters. Decent. Lift is added for operation in hot and high airport conditions. The empty weight of almost 25 tons is a lot. Peers in this class are a couple of tons lighter. The problem of excessive weight has plagued the ARJ21 almost from the very beginning. AVIC-1 considered various ways to solve it, including the use of lighter alloys and composites. They even became friends on this topic with Bombardier, but apparently things did not work out, and the Phoenix remained metal. This affected the range. With a maximum takeoff weight of 40.5 tons, it flies 2,200 kilometers. For a modern regional airliner, not much, considering fairly large tanks. Probably when fully loaded, the plane cannot be 100% fueled. not a unique issue. So far, this problem was solved by raising the maximum takeoff weight limit. The ARJ21-700ER already weighs 43.5 tons, which made it possible to fill the tanks completely and increase the range to 3,700 kilometers. The remaining indicators for original aircraft are more or less standard. Service ceiling 39,000 feet, cruising speed up to 470 knots. For takeoffs and landings, they need runways about 1,900 meters long. One of the most complex elements of the aircraft, the power plant, is made by General Electric, which offered the CF34 family engine in the 10A version, the brother of the 10E, which they supply to the first-generation Embraer E190 and 195 airliners. Bypass ratio 5:1. 53-inch fan, sliding thrust reversal, and even chevrons mounted on the nozzle. The thrust on the ARJ21-700 is almost 76 kilonewtons. The engine is not new, but reliable, economical, and widespread in aviation. There are minimum risks, and the costs are low, just what they needed. A side effect is that the engine is not new. For the early 2000s, it was good, but now, 20 years later, more interesting engines have appeared. The same Embraer has already managed to change generations, having cool geared Pratts under the wing. In terms of onboard equipment, the ARJ21 is a relevant regional airliner. The cockpit has modern glazing, is designed for 2 crew members, and is supplied with a full set of equipment, including 5 multi-function displays. The fly-by-wire control system is from Honeywell. The avionics are based on the ProLine 21 system from Rockwell Collins. The fashion for side sticks has not arrived. Classic yokes are installed here. It's time to look at the plane from the point of view of those for whom it was actually made. The passenger cabin has a width of 3.14 meters and a height of 2.03 meters. Very spacious, noticeably larger than that of the Embraer and Bombardier planes, and only slightly smaller than that of the Russian Superjet. Internal layout, 5 seats in a row in a 3+2 scheme. In business class, there are 4 seats in a row in a 2+2 scheme. In principle, it corresponds to the trend of increasing the interior of regional planes for the sake of passenger comfort, and the legacy of the Douglases, which had the same layout, is visible. The cabin has a layout that is quite classic for small regional planes. Behind the cockpit, there is a galley and a lavatory. Then there is the passenger area, behind which in the rear there is another lavatory. 2 main doors at the front on both sides of the fuselage, plus 2 emergency doors closer to the tail. Everything is in place. The level of comfort is decent for a small regional aircraft, except that the engines installed on the fuselage make the rear part of the cabin noisier. The ARJ21-700's cabin capacity is 90 seats in a single-class configuration and 78 in a 2-class one, but these numbers are not final. The ARJ21-900 is the version of the aircraft with an extended fuselage and a capacity of up to 105 seats in a 1-class and 98 in 2. The 900 also has 2 variants. The basic one weighs 43.6 tons and flies 2,200 kilometers, and the ER version weighs 47.2 tons and flies 3,300 kilometers. The engines were boosted and reached a thrust of 82 kilonewtons. The third, passenger version that COMAC offers is the icing on the cake for any regional family, the VIP airliner. The ARJ21B should receive a luxury cabin for 20 passengers, improved sound insulation, and additional fuel tanks, allowing it to fly 6,100 kilometers. And finally, another important area of work for COMAC is cargo versions. The ARJ21F is created on the basis of the ARJ21-700, which, along with the luggage compartment below, has a cargo compartment on top instead of a cabin, as well as a large door on the side of the fuselage. The aircraft can transport containers and pallets with a total weight of up to 10 tons. There is also an intermediate solution, with the conversion of a passenger aircraft into a cargo aircraft. Several previously delivered planes have already undergone this procedure. Deliveries began in 2015, 8 years behind schedule. And now the thought may arise that the plane was late. By the time the ARJ21 began to be delivered, many of its competitors had already entered the market and even began to create new generations, even more technologically advanced and superior. But we remember the plans that were laid when creating the Phoenix. Let's be honest, initially it wasn't particularly surprising with its performance, and never claimed to be super technological, so the lag in this regard is not critical. Moreover, the foreign airliners, having become more advanced, have also become more expensive. And the gap in price tags between the ARJ21 on the one hand and, for example, the E-Jet E2 or A220 has become, to put it mildly, noticeable. The first plane was delivered to Chengdu Airlines. It was followed by several other small airlines and then the big guys: Air China, China Eastern Airlines and China Southern Airlines. This confirmed the view that the ARJ21 is more of a tool for domestic use. A Chinese manufacturer is supplying a Chinese aircraft to Chinese airlines under the umbrella of the Chinese government. The country will replace some of the imports with its own equipment, and COMAC will gain valuable experience. But they didn't stop there. In 2021, the ARJ21 began to be delivered abroad. The first airline to receive the Chinese aircraft was the Indonesian Transnusa, and orders for the aircraft came from Laos, Brunei and Congo. The most important stage in the development of the program has begun: the expansion of the Phoenix around the world, and its potential is in fact decent. The aircraft is quite cheap, backed by COMAC's interesting offers and favorable financial instruments. There are also broader factors. The ARJ21 is aimed at not-so-rich airlines in developing countries, of which there are dozens, and for many of them China is at least the most important trading partner. Yes, I wouldn't wait for the Phoenix in the liveries of American Airlines and Air France, but it may have a lot of clients in Asia, Africa and South America. Confidence in the prospects is also confirmed by industrial changes. The original assembly line in Dacheng was not large enough, and COMAC moved it to a new site at their plant near Pudong Airport, also in Shanghai, the same place where the C919 is being assembled. In parallel, another site appeared in Jiangxi province. This is in fact a customization center, where interior installation, painting and flight testing are carried out. The pace of deliveries is growing. In 2015, 1 aircraft was delivered. In 2018, 6, and in 2019 already 12, with a peak currently in 2022, 35 aircraft. Scaling up production is very important, as it is a factor of reducing costs. The total portfolio of orders for the ARJ21 is about 300 aircraft, about 130 of which have already been delivered to airlines. And that's without serious incidents and disasters. Enormous effort brought results. Meanwhile, the growth of the ARJ21 intersects with the general crisis of many of its competitors. The Japanese MRJ was never born. The Russian SSJ faces sanctions. The CRJ program was practically closed. Only Embraer can be called successful, but it now supplies larger aircraft of the E-Jet family, which are noticeably more expensive. Someone will remember the A220, the former C-Series, which is just as successful. But let's face it, it's difficult to consider it a simple regional airliner. It turns out that in the niche of new jet aircraft with a capacity of up to 100 seats, the ARJ found itself almost alone. This is a story of how an outsider, to whom at the beginning no one paid attention, turned out to be much more ambitious than everyone thought. Life is full of surprises. The ARJ21 Xiangfeng, the Soaring Phoenix, is a regional jet passenger aircraft, the same as every other, no exotics. But it became an example of how boredom, from an engineering point of view, can become the key to success. The aircraft is simple, reliable, quite efficient, and at the same time cheap. It is being produced and supplied, conquering the market, and also gives its creators invaluable experience, thanks to which they were able to take the next step and create the C919. Traditionally, for the Chinese civil aircraft industry, this process is slow, but they are clearly not planning to deviate from their course. With this, I think, the story of the Phoenix can be concluded, at least for now. Good luck to it on its travels, fast flights, and soft landings.